So hello everybody. As everybody is probably well aware, fall is setting in here in Canada, Nova Scotia, which means salt season is not too far around the corner, which means that this ride will be going in for storage anytime soon. So I would definitely keep driving this car all year round if it wasn't for the fact that salt and winter existed, but unfortunately it does in a lot of parts in the world in the Northeast in the United States. So if you drive a cheaper car, generally speaking, so if you drive the cheaper end Ford, cheaper end Chevys, Nissans, anything like that, that's just a cheaper car, you can definitely expect to get rust on your vehicle within 5 to 6 years because the salt is just so abrasive. The manufacturers with their cheaper vehicles just don't care too much about them. So like Chevy Cruises and a lot of those cars, those are the kinds of cars I'm talking about, the cheap Hyundais and stuff like that, just the bottom of the barrel cars. Don't be shocked when you start to get rust on your vehicle, not just the underbody, but actually on the body of the vehicle within 5 to 6 years of owning one of those. It's just the way they are. The manufacturers don't really care too much about their cheap cars. So anyway, gonna jump into it with what I do with this car. So around the third week of October is when I store it, and the first thing I usually try to get done is an oil change. I usually make sure that the oil change was done within a month and has about less than 2,500 kilometers on it. And the reason for doing that is so the car isn't sitting all winter long with dirty oil in the engine. So the oil's getting changed end of this week, which would be Friday, only 2 days from now, and that will be the last oil change for the year. And the other thing I get done, which I do every other year, is undercoat the vehicle. So undercoating is a good idea if you live anywhere with moisture anyway. So here in Nova Scotia, it's pretty damp to begin with. So getting a good undercoat will help keep all the salt and whatnot off the car. It's hard to see underneath here because it's dark outside, but there is very little to almost no rust under there. Look at that. That is extremely clean and extremely rare to see on any 13-year-old car here in Nova Scotia. So this car I undercoat every other year is what my plan is. I've only owned it a year and a half, but every other year. And before I undercoat it again, it's not getting done this year because it's still well sealed on there. There's no salt and all that stuff to knock it off. I'm going to completely spray off the old undercoat and then spray on new undercoat. Usually use fluid film or something Vaseline based of that sort. So that's step number 2. Step number 3, which I like to do the day of going into storage or the day before and knowing that it's going to be a nice day, is completely wash, wax, detail, and do the entire inside of the car and outside of the car. That way it doesn't sit with any dirt on it or anything. And when you go to pick it up, assuming it's a fairly dust-free environment, mine just sits in an old barn, but it doesn't get too dusty, surprisingly, sitting for 6 months. Then the car is detailed from when you bring it out, and you'll be thanking yourself come springtime. Now, what I did last year is my garage that I stored in, or barn that I stored in, that someone owns, I've just paid them $200 for the 6 months. I don't go crazy and spend $100 a month getting one of these heated garages, which I know a lot of people are probably going to disagree with, but let me tell you this. When your car is sitting outside in the summer, this is what the humidity and moisture are doing all summer. Up, down, up, down, up, down. So guess what? Your car, as long as it's outside, is getting exposed to the things like sun, getting exposed to rain, getting exposed to oxygen, all the humidity in the air. So guess what? Having the car in a non-heated storage doesn't really make a huge difference for the vehicle. And I know a lot of people might disagree with me on that, but I'm sorry, but when it's outside the other 6 months of the year, guess what? Those things are all affecting the car. Now that's why I get the vehicle undercoated, to keep the moisture off the bottom of the vehicle. So it's just one of those steps that I take, and it's one of those things I don't really worry about too much. And last year I actually didn't disconnect the battery, and believe it or not, the car did not need a boost after 6 months. So I know this year, regardless, I'm going to need a new battery come next spring, with or without a trickle charger on it, because just sitting all that time probably did put a good dent on the battery. It used to have 750 cold cranking amps. Now it's down to about 600. So I'm just going to leave the battery connected again this year, boost it in the spring, replace the battery. Not that big of a deal to me to get a trickle charger or anything. I just don't bother, because getting a new battery every couple of years really isn't that big of a deal. It's like $120 and then you're good to go. I mean, it is what it is. And like I said, know some people are going to disagree with that as well. But it's just what I do. It's not a huge deal to me, and it's just the battery at the end of the day. To hell with it. It's not going to be a make or break deal. And right before I go in, I usually pump the tires up to about 38 or 39 psi. Their tires are, or these tires are only supposed to be pumped up to about 40, 44 psi. I think I have to double check on the Coopers, but that's what the Goodyears were. So I gave about a pound or two of lenience, so that way when on my drive there, the tire doesn't become overinflated and risk popping. So that's what I do. That's what I do for my winter storage tactics. And like I said, I know some of you aren't going to agree entirely with what I do, and I know some of you all have your own tactics, but let me just say that the main goal of storing a car, it doesn't have to be a perfect storage situation. It's to keep the salt off the vehicle, because guess what? That is the #1 killer of cars on the road here in the Northeast and in Canada in general. You want to be able to keep the salt off the road. That's going to kill it faster than any type of moisture, rain, anything like that. Get the salt off your car and it won't rust out anymore. Like even with me storing last year, this car's rust that is on it, which is very, very minimal, did not expand at all. And it was sitting in the garage unheated, and guess what? The rust did not expand at all because there's no salt on there to aggravate it or anything like that. So that's what I'm doing for the winter. I hope you all have a great day, and I hope to get a couple more Crown Vics videos out before the season's over. See you all next time.